explaining.
So welcome, ladies. It's so good to have a boardroom full of amazing women here at our Perth Business Women Australia Q&A panel discussion on the critical issues facing WA businesses. Now, before we go into today, I'd just like to introduce myself. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Lyn Hawkins. I'm the founder and director of Business Women Australia. I love to hear any of your ideas, but I've also got Leanne Jeffrey, my colleague, here in the room, who will be keen to hear your ideas, and if you've got any questions about membership, I'll put her contact details up shortly. But for those of you who've heard this before, bear with me. I'd like to just share with you all the Business Women Australia vision, where everyone is valued and can contribute to the greater good. So we're a collaborative organisation. It's a co-creation model that we have with our members. We don't sit here and develop a program and roll it out. We actually work with our members to design and deliver what our members want, to actually so their voices are heard, so that they're visible. And so we help each other achieve our dreams and our goals. People say, do you have to be a business owner to be a member of Business Women Australia? No, you don't. You could be an executive, you could be an employee that's on the career ladder, a professional in the services industry, or a woman that's trying to get back into the workforce, or a mum who's at home and holding space and wanting to just stay connected. Everyone is welcome, whether you're new to business or whether or not you're a seasoned entrepreneur. We've got loads coming up. I think someone asked me earlier on. For those of you who might be watching a recording, and I am aware we are recording today, if you want to check what's currently on with Business Women Australia, go to the website, into our events calendar, and you'll see whatever's going on online or nationally in each of the states. We've got a webinar coming up on the 8th of September with Leanne, that's you, hosting any of our community chats connections. And if you've got any questions about joining, you could most welcome to get the Zoom link and join that. So it's a great way to connect with other women that are in the collective that might be local or national as well. So just a nice way to stay connected and to ask any questions about membership if you're thinking about joining. On the 20th of September, there's a Sydney Walk and Talk in the Domain. Every month, the ladies in Sydney meet and go for a walk through the Domain, generally hosted by a couple of our members over there. So if you're in Sydney, we'd love you to join that. And on the same day, we have our online masterclass, the 20th of September, with, I'm hosting Jessica Schubert. So Jessica is our Head of Learning and Leadership Development. She's also a shareholder in Business Women Australia, and she is a master in the leadership coaching and training area, and she's actually been getting a lot of questions about leadership shadow. So we're doing a masterclass on that topic. On the 26th of September, if you're down south, join the ladies for a networking lunch in Bunbury. On the 29th of September, we've got the Climate Action Expectations in Business podcast. I think LJ is actually interviewing Dr. Kate Ringvold, is that correct? Yeah. Kate is an expert in circular economy. She's worked with some big engineering companies like GHD and also with IKEA. She's actually coming back to WA and she's set up a collective in this space around sustainability. She's definitely worth listening to, and that'll be a great podcast. If you miss a podcast, you can jump onto our YouTube channel or on our website and catch up on any of our recordings. We make them publicly available. We want people to find our leaders and find our knowledge experts. So we record a lot of our podcasts and webinars and have them up there. Our next Cheese, Chats and Wine, hosted by the fabulous Vita Carlino in Inglewood at the Inspiration Space, is on the 4th of October, Navigating with Soft Power. And back in WA, one of our big events later in October will be our Eclectica Art Exhibition event, which is
the 19th of October.
19th of October in Fremantle, something for those of you south of the river. So yay, we're doing something finally south of the river.
And a note to the beautiful wine that we're going to have there.
3 drops, thank you very much. Joe's just come back from what we've been doing is the 3 Drops Wine Splash, which started in Perth. There was one in Sydney, wasn't there? And recently in Brisbane. How did that go, Joe?
It's good. Yes, it's really lovely sharing West Australian wines we referred. So yeah, it was good. They were actually a really, really lovely crowd. We did a sort of a boardroom masterclass, so it was lovely.
Fantastic. So
and it was at Hyatt Regency, and they were wonderful hosts.
Hyatt Regency are fantastic. We love the Hyatt. They've done some great things with us over the years, haven't they? Joe's been with us on this journey, so 3 Drops are our favourite wine, to say. And wonderful to have 3 Drops supporting us for our Eclectica Art Exhibition in South Fremantle. Okay, so we focus on 5 areas of development: leadership, business improvement, personal growth and professional growth, influence, profile, raising our profile, being seen, stepping up. It's a bit scary sometimes, but it's not that bad when you're doing it with your girlfriends. And of course, connecting. Friendships is one of those things that comes out of Business Women Australia as one of the things that we don't often come in to make friends, but then when we do our research and surveys, everyone says what they love most about BWA, the beautiful friendships that they make. So we built BWA on these shared values. When we first started back, I can remember sitting in a boardroom with a bunch of women who were like wanting to be a part of us framing what this women's collective was going to be, designed by women for women. And these sort of shared values was what we started with at that time, probably due for a refresh. And I'd just like to shout out here to Kat. Kat Marriott has actually stepped up and come up with all these amazing ideas and doing a bit of an audit on how we're presenting ourselves to the public and how we're actually, she's been experiencing us over the 6 months really since you've been dipping in and out, and has come up with some great strategic ideas that we are actually going to be fleshing out and showcasing when we have our members' online feedback session, which is
25th of October.
25th of October. Make sure that you jump in on that webinar. Kat will be sharing some stuff. We've got some members East Coast that are sharing some ideas. We want to hear your ideas about where we take BWA over the next 12 months, 5 years. This is your brand. This is about you. So this is the co-creation model we have. If you are social, we are on LinkedIn. You can join the group whether you're a member or not in the LinkedIn group. You can only post in the LinkedIn group if you're a classic or a premium member. We have obviously our website, loads of resources, information on there, our events calendar, our directory with our members are all there. They're all available for you to see, connect to them, ask them what it's like to be a member of BWA. If they don't like BWA, tell me and we'll find out why and get them more engaged. Facebook. We're on Facebook, like our page. We have a private group on Facebook. We're also on Instagram, and we're still hanging in there with Twitter. I shouldn't say Facebook, I should say Meta.
Twitter.
Ats. Oh gosh. Okay, we need to change that. We need to change our icons as well. Yeah. Okay, put that on the to-do list.
Don't worry guys, just putting on my to-do list and update.
I can't keep up with it. Oh, it's too hard. She says, I'll be doing it too long. Okay, disc flow accreditation. For those of you who are in teams, managing teams, working with teams, whatever it might be, this is a great profiling tool. It's great fun to use when you're building teams to be able to understand your differences. Some of you might have heard of disc profiling. The flow bit is the new version that's adding in the emotional intelligence aspects part of it. So we actually have an endorsement of that because Jessica Schubert, who is our Head of Learning Development, has the rights to distribute disc flow through APAC. And here we are, loads of membership benefits. I'm not going to go too much into that. And there's 2 types of membership levels at this point in time. That may change, and maybe 3 eventually. Kat has her way.
It's just ideas.
We love ideas. I love ideas. And Leanne is the person. Here we go, Leanne Jeffrey, Leanne at businesswomenaustralia.com.au, and she will be able to answer all the questions that you might have. So, without further ado, I would like to ask to come up here. Thank you to our host, LG Accounting Solutions, for the wonderful lunch, for the spread, for the space, and for you and your time and expertise. Natasha, come to the front. Natasha's a partner of LG Accounting Solutions. She's a chartered accountant. That's where you see the CA, if you're ever wondering what the CA means. So she has a degree in accounting and international business from Edith Cowan University. She enjoys supporting business owners inspire success and solve problems. And for over 18 years, she's worked as an accountant, giving people the tools they need to grow their businesses. For the last 10 years, you've been a partner, so it's not just a new thing. And so running LG Accounting Solutions has given Tash that inside information about what it's like to run a business as well. I mean, before you actually have to sit in the hot seat and run the business, it's kind of theoretical in a lot of ways, isn't it? And she's very passionate about optimising not only her business but those of her clients. The other thing is, I've heard through Little Birdie that she's a wealth of knowledge about super funds. She's known as the super fund guru around the office. And of course, those who know her and love her and maybe even friends with her on Facebook, actually live vicariously through the cycling. You can see it's working on me. Tash is such an awesome, she's always going to great things. I'm sure today you're probably looking at there going, what a gorgeous day.
It was a beautiful morning this morning.
I agree. That's the difference, right? While I was drinking tea and talking about Barbie with my husband, Tash is out writing her mind. Okay, take a seat and I'll introduce Katrina. Katrina Ford is the director and the founder of CAIT, that'll be Cyber Awareness IT, and also how she spells her first name, part of her name, and she's known as Kate by her friends, so we can all call her Kate. She has 20 years of experience in the IT industry, and she's focused her attention on the cybersecurity aspects and how that impacts business. She's got a strong focus on the human element of cyber safety and does some amazing work with companies, training the first line of defence being the staff against cyber criminals. I've actually referred her to quite a few organisations and the feedback has been amazing. Kate is passionate about raising awareness of the risk of cyber crime and helping all businesses to be cyber safe. From her accent you'll be able to tell she's also our best import. She's Australian, she's from Ireland and she's got some great stories to tell, maybe over a wine and another time. So take a seat, Katrina. We now have Sandra Robinson. Sandra is the Director and Owner of Skills Strategies International. They're a registered training organisation. She has over 30 years experience delivering vocational learning and uses a customer-centred creative approach that engages and motivates learners. And I've seen her in action. It absolutely is true. She's very engaging, very innovative, very inspiring. Skills Strategies International, some of you may have seen them. They've got some premises, quite large training rooms out of Balcatta, but also in Mandurah, and they're also interstate, strong hold in Melbourne. And they work collaboratively with organisations delivering bespoke learning experiences, generating a return on investment, we love that word, don't we, Tash? And meaningful change to the lives of students. I've been lucky enough to be invited to MC quite a few of their annual congress or conferences for skills strategies with their VET teachers, the vocational education training teachers, so hundreds of teachers at the convention centre in Perth, the last couple of ones we've had, and I've been amazed at how much innovation, best practices globally that Skills Strategies International bring into the table that then influence, our educators, the kind of quiet achievers. A lot of people don't know about the impact that you're doing unless they see it from the place that I do, so it's wonderful to have you, Sandra, here today. Okay, that's our wonderful panel. Aren't we awesome? The way I'm going to run this is I've got some questions, but I'm very keen for anyone in the audience, if you do have a question, pop your hand up, and if I don't notice it, just wave furiously. And eventually someone will tell me. So what I'd like to just start off is give you each 5 minutes, maybe starting with you, Sandra. Given that there's so many critical issues facing WA businesses, what are your insights? Insights and perspective about what's happening in terms of the critical issues that are current.
Well, it's really interesting because there's been a big change post-COVID. I don't know what happened. COVID seemed to have been a line in the sand, and there's been a lot of things happen since. I think, talking to people in the room today, some of the big issues are still skill shortages, particularly in Australia. But I think there's this sort of uncertainty still. And within our community where I guess there's a fear of recession. I mean, the Australian dollar has dropped, the cost of everything is up, wages have shot up recently. and yet business confidence is lower than it's been for a long time and much lower than other places globally. So there's all this uncertainty that's sort of bubbling that has an effect on us within our businesses. We're fortunate, we're really, really busy, but it's not the same in a lot of the businesses that we're working with. So I think the people or the businesses that were agile and pivoted and took up the opportunities during COVID have maintained that innovation, and it appears that they're getting stronger, but a lot of businesses weren't able to do that, and there's a diminishing of operational success, I suppose. And there's threats as well, like cyber security, changes in IT, skill levels, and you can't get staff when the unemployment rate's 3.4%. Those people that are unemployed tend to have barriers to employment, so it's hard to get staff. And it's like everyone out in the workforce has had this game of fruit salad, and everyone's shifting. So retaining staff is difficult, and as a result, you're spending a lot of time on that churn, training people, getting them up to scratch, and then there's the change again. In one of the training sessions I was doing yesterday, and we've got people in there from local government, and they were saying their churn's 40%. That's huge.
Wow. And where are the people going?
They're just swapping jobs.
Yeah, moving around from different local government.
Looking for better employment opportunities, being looked after, they want flexibility. And, as a result, there's all this fluctuation in the workplace.
And with that, then the talent and the knowledge and expertise
goes.
and efficiencies go.
Yeah. Well, we've just had a new start today, and this is her second day, and she's already put in for 2 weeks leave, and I'm going like, hang on, in the next 2 months, and she wants a day off. Wants a day off for her daughter's birthday, a day off for her daughter's sports carnival, and I thought
but what can you do?
Yeah.
This is what it is. It's an employee's market at the moment.
Yeah, and it took us 6 weeks to go through the process of interviewing and everything to get her on board.
And she did right.
Second day,
she wanted leave during that.
No, not at all. No. So, not impressed.
Doesn't pay her too well. She can afford to go on holiday now.
So so those sorts of things I think cause a huge amount of pressures.
They do, and that's not an unusual situation in an employee's market.
No.
So employees will take the job and they'll go, okay, I'm in the seat now, I can just let you know what's going on. Interesting.
Yeah.
What about you, Tash? What are you seeing?
We're seeing very similar things to Sandra. Definitely the labour shortage is affecting a lot of our clients. Not just in Perth, but also rurally. We've got a lot of farming clients, and they're also really struggling to get workers, whether that's because the visa rules have recently changed as well. So they're really struggling to find employees, and then when they find them, they have to pay with the earth, which means then they're having to put their prices up, which is just all creating this vicious cycle of everything costing more.
Feeding into inflation, otherwise you're going to erode their profitability.
And then that's feeding into cash flow problems. So we're spending a lot more time with our clients talking about cash flow issues and talking about strategies of how to improve their cash flow position. So that's been a big focus for a lot of our clients of late. Is that improving cash flow.
Well, we'll delve a little bit into that again, I think. But over to you, Kate. What about you? What are you seeing from your perspective about the critical issues that are facing WA businesses?
Well, I think I'm in cybersecurity, and we started the year as the most hacked nation in the world. Didn't start very well. So I think that's it's telling that we're having huge issues, and technology is changing rapidly. If you look at AI and how last year it wasn't really a buzzword, now it's everywhere, and people don't understand the risks that AI is bringing into their organisations. I was at a webinar last week, and they talked about local governments, how tools like Grammarly and ChatGPT, there's a lot of privacy concerns around using those tools, but people are using them and not really understanding the implications that they have. And from a skills perspective, I'm seeing it every organisation that I'm working with a mining company at the moment. They spent, I think, 3 months trying to find the right resource for the cyber team. Brought him in, trained him up. 5 weeks later, he got offered 50,000 more, and off he went. And you know, that's now they're 6 months behind, and they're now short of skills. And I think the big challenge is, I don't think there's a skill shortage in the cybersecurity industry per se. I think that there's a lot of graduates coming out of university and they can't get their foot in the door, and then they're leaving and going somewhere else because they can't. And we're seeing a lot of that. As at B-Sides, which is a cybersecurity, we call it hacker conference, a couple of weeks ago here in Perth. And so many students say the same thing, that they've gone, they've studied, but they can't get that placement or that step into cybersecurity. Businesses are asking for 5+ years experience. So how can they, and even for entry level roles, we're seeing it as well. So, and that's the general talk around, you know, the top end of time, when, you know, that people are just moving from one place to the other, they're chasing the money, and because it's there at the moment. So that's the top end of time. But if you look at the small businesses, you know, so things like the Security of Critical Infrastructure Act has come in, which means now if you're in the supply chain for critical infrastructure, you have much more compliance, which a lot of small businesses fall into that supply chain, and they don't even understand that they're in that supply chain, and how do they then improve their security when they're struggling already with other sides of their business. So it's huge at the moment.
And it's a massive amount of compliance hitting SMEs at the moment.
Huge.
Yeah. Used to be just an issue for RTOs, now it's for everybody. Yeah. Crazy times.
There's so
ahead.
much government red tape.
Yeah.
It's just craziness.
Yeah. Well, they'll respond to something that's happened and then go, well, we'll put this in as a compliance thing to stop that happening, so that for the small percentage of people that were taking advantage of their clients or what have you, then the majority now have an extra layer of compliance. Yeah.
And it costs you. I mean, we have a full staff member who just does compliance. And that doesn't generate any income.
Just in terms of the audience, are there any critical issues that we haven't picked up, just in that quick overview from our 3 panel members, that you're seeing? Have a think about that. Kate?
Mine isn't more because I just work for myself, but it's got to speak to a lot of people during the day. One of the things that I've really observed, and this is more about people who are in their jobs working, is that everybody seems to be exhausted, that everybody's working long days, and because of the skills shortage, the consequences are that they might be doing a lot more overtime, and or they may also be doing overtime to pay their more expensive mortgages, but there's a lot of drained people out there at the moment. I don't know if that's what you guys are seeing in the workplace as well, that people's ability to be fresh and clever and creative, and it's like, oh no, I'm just going to get a, you know, people are just
do the basics.
Correct.
Get out there, and health and wellbeing issues are sort of bouncing from one thing to the next.
That's something that I've just observed from the people who I've been speaking to.
I suppose the working from home as well, you know, we've all went from working from home, and I was a victim of this myself. I got very comfortable in my little office at home and didn't want to move back out of it again. And recently I started working from a co-working space in the city, and it's such a difference. You know, you're more motivated, you get so much more done, and you get up in the morning and you're putting on proper clothes instead of just your sweatpants.
It also means you finish work when it's time to go. So you're not going to be working through the night.
So I think that's
interesting. And the separation of space between home and work.
Yeah, definitely. And that's a challenge that businesses are having as well, is that they can't get people out of their comfort zones and back into the office. And you see a lot of the larger organisations now are putting policies in place to say that you must come in 60% of your work week and things like that.
I mean, there's certainly advantages from a parent point of view, juggling parenting, working, all those sorts of needs, that it is hard to give up on that ability.
Tell me, if you've got your kids at home with you, how efficient and effective are you?
You just lock them in the cupboard. That's a joke for anyone listening to the recording.
Two areas which I produce wine, so I'm moving products around.
The two areas which are we're really noticing is logistics.
Mm.
Like the cost of moving goods has got so high, and freight companies, it's now standard to charge a 20% fuel loading. Something that used to be 7% is now 20%. And given our vineyards are 400 kilometres from the city, it makes a big difference. And I ship pallets of wine to the east as well. And then the other area that's having an impact is insurance, which like ring at your insurer and your broker, and it's gone up immensely. And it's like, but we've had claims, they're all going up. Like it's just
yeah, and that's adding to your bottom line and the ability to in your pricing that pushes up the inflation again. It's that vicious cycle at the moment, isn't it? Yeah. Good additions. Thanks, ladies. Okay, so I'm going to throw this one then to you all again to think about and to share with us the barriers or the hurdles that you see that should be prioritised. So, what do you say to your clients, Tash?
It's really, for us, it's about planning, making sure they've got a budget. So we're obviously an accounting firm, so we're focused a lot on the numbers, so making sure that they've got a budget, that what they're planning on doing will actually give them the results at the end of the day, so they're not putting in all this work and then because they haven't priced things right and have a plan to price things right, they're not actually making any money. So definitely making sure they've got a budget and a plan in place, but then having the next step of, all right, cool, this is our plan. What steps do we need to actually action it? Making sure they've got enough leads, making sure they've got enough people, and just having that full plan in place, and not only the plan but also the steps behind it. So really, really important.
And do you find that most business owners are going, oh yay, a plan and a budget, yeah, let's take the time out of my busy day when I don't have enough staff and it's just been hacked.
So it really does depend on the business and what they're in, but most of our clients, yes, are pretty on board with the plan.
Yeah.
Either they need it for the bank, so it's a requirement so they can get their funding anyway, so they're the easy ones. We know they're definitely going to get their plan in place. But a lot of our businesses do want to grow and do want to improve and do want to make sure they're making enough money.
And how much time would it be for say a 2 mil revenue business that's average, give or take a mil on either side? Yeah. How long would it take them to do a business plan for the next 12 months?
It would, if we're helping them, it would probably take about half a day.
Right.
And that's with an interactive session of just asking questions, mapping out the plan, putting it in a format that is usable so you can import it into your accounting software, but also making sure that the clients understand what their actual plan is.
Yeah, and what kind of questions would you be asking them around that?
Really around their expectations with turnover, how they're expecting to get to that turnover on the income side, how many clients they're going to need, and on the expense side, challenging them on what their expenses are. If they're an existing business, you've got a base to work from, so that makes it a bit easier. But looking at their expenses and challenging them about how they can actually cut costs, whether they actually need these expenses, and what we can do to maximise their profit.
So 2 areas, one in reducing their costs, the other in increasing their revenue, either by increasing their pricing. You heard it now. If you're interested in joining as a BWA member, do it today because the price is going up soon. Or adding to their products and services side. Debbie, what else should we be looking at? We've got another money guru in here.
About, I guess, efficiency
of
processes, and often I've worked with business owners who, they're the brains of the outfit, but they're still doing absolutely everything. And they're not delegating some of the routine things.
Delegating's really great, especially if you've got a bunch of VAs that may be a lot cheaper in the mix and doing their...
Or they haven't invested or explored any automation tools to improve their efficiency, so they're chewing up their valuable time. They could be fee earning, doing some of this mundane stuff.
They could be out there getting some great big chunky sponsorships. I love it. Note to self. Thanks, Debbie.
Someone at the back.
Sorry, I'm fairly new. I just started my own company, and so I'm in the process of doing the budget and seeing what cash flow is and things like that. So for a very early business, baby business, would you review that budget and that plan, say, every 3 months and then move towards?
We'd be looking at reviewing it every month at a
Okay.
minimum. And the more regularly you review it, doesn't mean you have to update it, but reviewing it and checking that your assumptions are correct and where oh no, I'm getting off plan here, or I'm doing really well here, and you can then adjust your plan according to what's actually happening. So looking at it regularly is really important.
Has been the ramifications for these large organisations like Latitude, Optus and Medibank. They haven't really felt anything from the government just yet. We need to see something happening. It's okay putting these policies in place, but we need to follow through and maybe make an example out of some of these so other organisations take it serious. So I think
and we
that's
can find that podcast on your website.
West Coast Cyber.
Excellent. And a recent podcast you did with LJ, we'll find in our recorded podcasts tab and on our YouTube, Apple, Spotify. Awesome. So this is a great gift that you're giving to the rest of us when, you know, maybe we have got our head in the sand. And I think perhaps the culture in Australia should be right.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't want to say it because I'm not Aussie, but it is part of it.
Also, small businesses are reactive.
Yeah, it should be right. I mean, we just
There's
think.
a question.
Yes.
Sorry. Just a question on data storage then, because as a business you kind of think it's better to store it onshore, but if we're getting so many attacks and that sort of thing, is it still the status quo that storing your data in Australia is the safest option, or like what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, it's a huge topic around data privacy. If you work in the not-for-profit sector, you have to have your data stored within Australia. There's so much compliance there. But again, when you look at some of the data saving, services that's out there, most of them replicate across the waters to data centers all over the world. We just spoke about Grammarly last night. Grammarly servers are in the US, so Grammarly is a plugin that you can use on your Word, and it helps you with your spelling and grammar and all the rest. So that's just transferring all your data back to the US, analysing it and then sending it back. So there's so much risk with it, but from a perspective, I would definitely be working with an IT company that's reputable, knows what they're doing, and they can set it up properly, because it doesn't really matter where you save your data. If you don't have the controls and the security in place, then it's not going to be safe. So like if you save it on a local server, but you still haven't set up things like multi-factor authentication, and you're not using or you're not having secure passwords, then it's still at risk.
What is a secure password in your opinion?
Over 16 characters long.
16? Wow, we got to 12 now. I was complaining.
Over 16 characters long. How am I going to remember that?
But this is the right sentence.
Right sentence.
Yeah.
I was born
Yeah. And what about LastPasses and things like that? Are we off those now? Because that was a big thing last year.
It's a controversial topic.
Last year's webinar.
Yeah. It's a controversial topic. LastPass did have a massive data breach, but they have invested a lot in their security. It's like any other security company. Okta is another security company who do MFA, and a lot of our large corporates use it. They've just got hit. Our technology companies are getting targeted because they know they're in the supply chain.
Bring it down.
Yeah, so again, it's how you use them. So if you use LastPass or any password manager, it doesn't matter who it is, but you're still creating your own passwords, and you're still using the same password for every different website, well, there's no advantage of using a password manager. So it's all about your hygiene in terms of changing that password regularly. The reason why it's 16 is because the hacking methods that are used, there is statistics and methods around there that if it's over 16 it takes it longer to hack, and then they might give us something. But also the methodology, and the government has come out and give the advice that if it is over 16 then you only need to change it once a year, really. So for a lot of businesses that means that if you're not part of a data breach and you're not reusing that password and it's over 16 characters long, then it should be safe to only reset it once a year.
What would you say?
I do mine every 3 months for my most critical accounts. Things like, for instance, if you're setting up a newsletter or a blog that there's no sensitive information, You know, you need to have multiple email accounts as well. I think everybody should have, you know, so that your main email account is only for your customers and, you know, sensitive emails that you send. Then set up another email account that I call as your trash. So, you know if you're going to sign up for this newsletter, they're going to just keep hitting you with more and more trash, junk emails. And then when you're signing up for these newsletters and things like that, it doesn't really matter what passwords that you use for it, really, because of what they're going to do. But for your main, like your banking and any online platforms and systems, look at what, you know, changing those regularly. So I have like a list of probably about a minimum of 10 that are important to me, that if they got in, it would cause me significant trouble. So I change those every 3 months.
Good advice, and not too hard to do. So a good priority.
Yeah.
Because that's the critical aspect of your life.
But you don't have to change everything. Like I was part of the last data breach last year, and I haven't changed all my passwords. I've just changed it on those ones that I know that's important.
Yeah.
Ones that are too, like newsletters and blogs and things like that.
Go for it, guys. Learn something new.
What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Interesting question. What's your advice on getting insurance on cyber?
We were talking about this earlier. Look, I think some organisations it's a necessary and it's needed. You just need to be very careful to read your terms and conditions. As I was sharing with somebody here earlier, recently a not-for-profit asked me to review their cyber insurance, and very deep down in the T's and C's it said, if the incident is due to social engineering, this policy is void. And most cyber incidents are due to social engineering. It's about 90%. So therefore, it's not what we do.
What's social engineering?
Social engineering is like phishing, is so where they target you to get you to do things that you wouldn't normally do. So they use methods and techniques to trick you into giving away your information or clicking on a link on an email. So that's what social engineering is. Yeah.
Would that also include, you know, like sometimes where they get a very like email but we don't quite read the whole email?
Yeah.
Is that still be included in the social
That's social engineering, yeah. That's a very common tactic. Yeah.
So they're making a lot of money.
We're in the wrong game.
Yeah. Well, given the financial pressures, Tash, what are the key tools we need in our toolkit? I mean, we've talked about this pressure on cash flow.
Yep.
We talked about increasing inflation, costs in terms of our supply costs, our freight, insurances, whatever it might be. What are the key tools in the toolkit we can use?
The key tools is making sure that you've got the right experts and the right people to talk to be able to help you to improve and grow your businesses, basically. So making sure you've got the right IT people, making sure you've got the right training people, the right accountants, the right bank manager, insurance broker, making sure you've got those right people around you, because you are good at running your business and what you do, but you're not going to be good at doing all the peripheral stuff that you need to engage those experts to help you with.
That's such a good answer, because we often sort of try and do everything ourselves. I know one thing, working with business women, and in my other hat, working predominantly with males, and men are very good at delegating and getting the right team. They'll have an idea around something and they'll already start bringing the people in, and they'll actually start defining. And this is not true for every male and not true for every female, but it's just a generalisation. What I've noticed, I was talking to someone recently, he met this amazing guy to work on one of his agri-businesses, and the business, he wanted to employ him, and the business that he brought him over to have a look at, the guy goes, well, it's not kind of big enough really for what I was thinking about. So this chap said, well, how big do you want it to be? Help me source the land and let's make it bigger, because he was investing in that person, in the resource. And that is how he has grown into one of the most successful businessmen in WA. And I was like, wow, that actually would never have occurred to me doing like that. I'm all about how do I be better, how do I do things better, and how then do I surround myself with great people to come along with the journey I want to go on.
So I was just going to say, I don't think we like to ask, women don't like to ask in general. It's almost like we need to figure it out for ourselves first.
It's a bit of a hurdle, that, isn't it? Like, and I'm sure it's not true, and I know there's women in this room who aren't like that, but for the majority, Gemma, you've got your hand up.
I'm
Are you admitting to that?
I've badly timed hand up, but I'm not one of those women. So speaking of delegation and speaking of cybersecurity, so I kind of have a follow-up question for Kate. So I'm in a remote-based law firm, and I'm 4 months in, and I'm drowning in admin and bookkeeping and all of that stuff. So I found a lovely virtual assistant based in Brisbane. I found a lovely bookkeeper based in Victoria, and I've got all their engagement paperwork, and it's come to the point where they say, "Oh, we need your passwords now." And I'm like, well, how do you safely let them get into Xero, let them get into software you're using? Like, I'm old school. I'm like, I'm just going to pick up the phone and tell you over the phone. and you've got terms and conditions telling me that you've got data security and you've got cyber protection and you've got all, like, two-factor authentication. And it's in the terms, so I'm like, yeah, cool, I've got you by the, But how is there like an app? Is there a safe way of doing it? How would you kind of release?
It is a challenge. I would suggest if you can set them up their own account, that is always going to be the most secure method, because if they leave the business or there's any dispute, you can easily cancel their access. And plus you can track and monitor what they do when they have their own account. I know it's a little bit more expense, but you have to think about the systems, especially for accounting practices and stuff like that, where you have banking information. You want to be able to track and monitor what they're doing.
But not only that, you want to be able to give them the right security permissions.
Exactly.
So like to your Xero, to your bank, you can say you can do this but not this. If you set it up correctly.
So you can do,
But for social media is a massive problem, because you can't do it for social media. You can't set them up with a separate account. You can, if it's a business page, you can set them up on your business manager as a separate admin. But some of the password managers will allow you to share the credentials without them seeing it. Now there's a bit of a flaw in that as well, because if they have set up, and I probably shouldn't share this, but anyhow, it needs to be known. But if they have set up, saved the password in their browser, they can then see that password anyway.
How do you turn that on? That feature?
It's some people, you can't turn it off.
But they're not your employee.
Exactly. Exactly. So if they have it on their
so we can turn it off. We're turning it off here for the employees, but they're not employees.
So, but there is ways of doing it that way. But I would say anything that, like Office 365, use that, or things like that, set them up with their own account is definitely the best way. But to be honest, you're better working with a good IT provider that will look at your systems, analyse your setup, and set it up in the proper way. Normally, IT MSPs, you can have different types of arrangements with them. That's my background. I spent 15 years in the MSP space, and I was managed services provider. And they will help and advise you as to what's the best setup for your business. So I'd always say have a trusted IT advisor that will look at it for you and make sure that you're set up properly. I worked with an organisation last year in Queensland, and she didn't realise that she wanted to have control of all her emails for all her staff, so they were all using the one mailbox. And she was using that mailbox for her banking, for everything, and basically her employees could reset passwords to every single thing that she had. So you just have to maybe get somebody else that thinks from a different lens than you to have a view of your setup.
Awesome, thank you.
Interesting. So that was a good question around our toolbox. So that we've got lots of different tools there to think about in terms of our toolbox. Sandra, is there anything you want to add to that in terms of the tools that you're using to help, deal with these critical issues that you think would be of value to others?
We're using a strategy at the moment called sense making. So when we're working with a problem or an opportunity in the business, we're working with the leadership team to make sense of what's going on, but making sense based on data and information. So that's relying more on the people than the tools, but giving them a strategy to be able to analyse what they're doing and make informed decisions rather than shooting from the hips.
And is that coming from a desire for better, more efficient decision making, for taking responsibility for things, or what was the prompt that brought you to bring that in?
As a training organisation, you come in with this is a training product, and we can give you this product, and that will make your business better. it's flipping that and going, you've got the knowledge in the room, or you can collect the data from within your business. Let's look at that and make a decision about what's the best way to go, rather than we've got the decision.
So bringing more empowerment into and harnessing that talent pool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Love that.
Yeah, because the business knows what the problem is or what the opportunity is, or they should. And so it's working with the team to implement that.
Yeah.
But very much based on data. So not on hunch, going, why is it that this is the situation, and what are you doing about it, and what data can you collect to make sure that what you've done is improving the business.
Yeah, that makes good sense. So in terms of the businesses in WA that have bounced back really strongly post-pandemic, what are you seeing, Kate? What are you seeing in your space? Are you seeing sort of any particular sectors, or?
It's difficult because obviously now I work a lot with those 1,000 plus, and most of them I don't think has felt the impact. Obviously in mining, definitely not. I think from a small business perspective, they definitely are. There's a lot of them that is struggling. I'm in quite a lot of small business communities, and they're generally just struggling, and it seems to be, as you say, fatigue as well. It seems to be, or I think it was Kat said, fatigue is a big thing for them. I think innovation is going to be huge for the future, and even though AI does come with its challenges, you have to get aboard because it's here and it's going to be part of the future. I think businesses need to leverage technology more to grow. It's the world and the era that we live in, and if you look at the technology changes that we've seen in the last 5 years, where are we going to be in 5 years' time? So don't fear it, embrace it.
Can't pull the plug out from the wall and the same season, keep manual records. I like that version of the best.
We all have those struggles, like, yesterday I was about to go into a meeting, and of course my computer needed to do an update before, and it happens to us all, and you're going, but then without that technology I wouldn't have been able to have that meeting. So it's a double-edged sword, but I think as all business owners now, you have to embrace technology, even though it might not be. And look, if it's not something that you love doing, get team members, that will love and share how they do it. The younger generation are growing up with technology now, and that comes with its challenges. It definitely does in business, definitely does.
The younger generation seems to be loving ChatGPT to write letters and
everything.
emails and
everything.
Everything goes through ChatGPT.
Yeah.
So equivalent.
It's interesting with young people because we do a lot of training with young people. They're great with their mobile phones, there's things that they can do, but get them to do a normal business process and they're lost. They have fun with IT, but they don't use it for business.
Exactly.
And I was thinking about the fatigue thing. I used to start workshops and say, learning's something that we've got to be doing because knowledge in the world doubles every, I used to say 12 months, and then it was 9 months, and then I thought I need to research this. It's now hours. So the amount of information and new knowledge that we're being thrown to us is happening constantly. And I think that causes fatigue. And you're having to learn something new all the time. Some of my staff say, "Oh, that's it. I don't want to learn anything new today." Because that is how it's happening.
And it's only going to get faster. I'm thinking about these new processing chips that are coming out of the video world and now being applied to AI, and it's just going to be done in seconds. Classic. It's not the information age anymore. It's going to be our own ability to process the information.
And virtual reality.
Or a strategy to manage it. Because I think it's too rapid. We can't deal with it all. We've just got to have some management strategy.
I think that's the challenge with technology. The horse is bolted before businesses can even catch up, and that is a huge problem for a lot of businesses. And staff are asking for different apps and different types of technology, and they're allowing them to have access to these apps without really understanding the risks that they can bring to the business. So I think for business owners, they do need to slow down and really analyse what technology they're bringing into their business, and if there's a risk involved, because there's so much out there that people don't understand.
Yeah.
And even like we had a recent audit, and one of the things out of the audit was your teams are all working a different way, and using a different spreadsheet or a different software application, and it makes you look undisciplined. You need to have the one best way for everyone. And that means I need to say to them, stop doing that. This is the only way we do it. Which is really difficult when you're also trying to encourage them to play with things and to innovate.
But also when you've got employees that are very stuck in their ways, and we know there's a labour shortage, and they might not learn being told no. This way.
And the government instrumentality that's doing the audit says we want something we can print. And
Try to control print screen. That works for me. So back to Tash. I mean, you've just released the September Business Facts results. I always get them in my inbox each month. Love them. Thank you for you and Lee getting those together. They're interesting little snapshots. What came out of this month?
So what was interesting numbers out of this time? So we get all the numbers from just like publicly available data. It's nothing we pay for, it's all publicly available. The most interesting one was from CCI, CCH is our research tool. CCI, which was that 75% of businesses are looking for employees. And that was a really interesting, alarming, and all the numbers that was probably the most interesting number. Like we all hear about inflation, it's all in the news. We know it's been coming down a little bit. Interest rates held steady, so they're all common things. But the most interesting number in that fact sheet we had this time was the employers looking for employees,
which is kind of reflective of what we're saying. Okay, that's interesting. So for those of you who want to get that delivered to your inbox, just chat to Tash after this. Sandra, in terms of your sector, what are you seeing, and how is Skills Strategies International placed in terms of how you're tracking compared to your competitors? I know a few years ago we were watching RTOs just failing their audits left, right and centre. There seems to be less RTOs. Your competition is fewer.
It's interesting because the regulator can't get staff, they can't do audits. So there's less audits happening. But the other thing is I'm on a consultative group about the qualification that you have to be able to train. And there was about 20 of them of us in a meeting, and the question was, well, we can't get enough trainers, and they've got to go through this course to become trainers. So we've modified the course that should make it easier, but it's not solving the problem. So what's the problem? And a lone voice in the room said, it's the system, it's what we're doing, it's the red tape and all the compliance. People come in, they work for a year and they go, no, I'm out of here. So we need to change the industry to make it fit the people. And
you've been looking outside the box, obviously sourcing potential opportunities offshore with India, developing partnerships over there. How else can some of us outside your sector overcome these issues with staff shortages? What would you be doing in our boat?
Well, we're looking for an employment agency to work with us, because we're going to train people in India and they want to come here. We went to a conference recently run by the state government and through the India-Australia Chamber of Commerce, and looking at the population growth that's happening over the next 10 years. Now, India's going to grow by 380 million, and they're already the most populous country in the world. And we're going to grow by 8 million. We have got a very large country. We're kidding ourselves if we think they're not coming here.
And highly educated, wonderful skill sets. Coming from a democratic environment, and wonderful skills opportunity for us to develop these partnerships in a really carefully planned way. So when you say you're looking for an employment agency that's got a migration aspect to it? Okay, so for those of you in your networks, have a think about who you know that might be an employment agency with migration.
I can help, yep.
Yeah, awesome.
Excellent, let's chat.
Yeah, fantastic, awesome.
Yeah,
And I think
because-
this is what we need to be thinking about in terms of looking outside the box and looking at countries and opportunities to actually sponsor and bring in this fabulous talent from around the world and how we can actually
However,
support
who's in the construction industry, because we need accommodation.
Yeah, I was just going to say. That's a big problem.
So Dahlia and her little pop-ups to start off with. Tiny houses that are a start and then let's get going. Who's got a backyard?
Well, we've got to change the legislation, and I think
Yeah.
that's what it gets back to
The red
is
tape.
we've got a lot of red tape and a lot of rules that are preventing us from moving forward.
That's it.
Because I think
That's it.
there's the people and the innovation to solve our problems, but the government's got to get on board.
Yeah.
But the conference we were at about the India thing, there was a government minister in each breakout session.
Yeah.
So there's some serious thinking going on.
Yeah. Well, that's exciting times ahead. So Tash, what about accessing funding? So we might need to access funding for survival and for growth. Where's the money? How do we get
There's a little bit of still a bit of government funding around, although that is depending on your industry, it is drying up. But so there is government funding, so looking at government grants, seeing if there's anything you're eligible for from the government. But then looking at basically bank funding is pretty much where a lot of these, unfortunately, interest rates are going up, which makes the cost of money, cost of borrowing is obviously a lot higher, making growth that little bit more expensive. But again, it comes back to making sure you've got good bookkeeping, making sure your numbers are up to date. If your numbers are strong, you're going to be able to access funding. But if your numbers aren't strong, it's having that good relationship with your bank manager or a broker so that they can help you get that funding that you need. Because just if you don't have good numbers and you approach a bank directly, you probably will just get knocked straight back. But if you go through a broker, they generally know the right people and can connect you up with the right banks and the right funding on different levels.
And is that a better way to go than redrawing from your own mortgage?
It depends. It really does depend. Sometimes drawing on your mortgage will be kind of cheaper money, and could potentially be the only way you can actually get money.
Yeah.
But it would be advised to talk to your accountant and talk to your financial team before you go drawing on your mortgage, because it has different implications from a tax point of view. But it could be an option.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions that we've got of the panel while I'm just wrapping up?
Oh, then I can just answer a little bit more about the financing. So there's a lot more. So in the finance world, you can kind of separate it into two. You've got your traditional banks, which as we know from branches, and then there's a huge swathe of non-bank lenders.
Yeah.
So in the business framework, there's a lot of businesses now that are offering working capital funds. Which things like Prosper and I can't remember all their names, but there's like a whole heap of lenders out there who will lend to small businesses for working capital purposes. Obviously you've got your traditional commercial property, but if you need working capital and you've got, bank statements, accountant prepared documents, then you can get access to working capital if you need it.
Yeah.
The main thing to watch out for is the terms and conditions of the interest rates that are applicable.
And the penalty
rates if you are potentially going to be defaulting, because a lot of the second tier lenders or the other non-traditional banks have very different terms and conditions and things, so just be mindful of watching out for those.
Yeah. Yeah, in some industries too, there's some opportunity to be able to get some finance through perhaps some of the invoicing that you might have. If you're in some of those chunky mining services kind of spaces, that's working well for some.
That is working well for some. The risk with those, sorry to focus on the negative, but it depends on the liability. So quite often with those funding models is they will finance it and then the debtor money, your client's money, goes to the financing company instead of to you. If your client then defaults on the payment, quite often that liability that they've defaulted on defaults back to you.
Right.
And then you'll have to cough up for that shortfall if the client...
With the penalty.
With the penalty.
Right.
So it's really watching those terms and conditions on those things, because quite often it looks good, but there's a bit of fine print to watch out for.
So what would be your advice in managing all these extra compliance burdens that we've spoken about here? And
it's definitely to stay on top of them.
Yeah.
Make sure you stay organised, and if it isn't your speciality or you don't have time, is to outsource, delegate, get